Welcome to another episode of Retrospective Gaming. In this episode, I'm reviewing Nethergate Resurrection. This was originally released as Nethergate back in 1998. This is made by SpiderWeb Software. The updated version, the one I'm reviewing, came out in 2007. Just a heads up, there will be spoilers in this review. One more thing, since this game barely has any music, I am using music from other games for the background to this review. Links will be in the description. Let's get to the review. Nethergate Resurrection starts off with two options. Play as the Romans or the Celts. The backstory to this is during the rule of Nero, which started in 54 AD. This takes place a little bit after that, around 60 AD, during, and I know I'm going to butcher some names, so please forgive me, it is what it is. This takes place during Boudicca's rebellion, and you have the option of playing as a small band of low-ranking Roman soldiers looking to crush the rebellion, or a band of Celtic childhood friends all grown up, ready to fight for your homeland. And beyond the little differences in the main story, the choice does affect your playstyle. For example, the Celts have an easier time and better access to magical spells. Now, whether you choose to go with the Romans and start off in the Shadowvale fort, or play as the Celts and start off in the village of Nethergate, not much is known besides the rebellion. You're just told to go to a certain place, summoned to a place, following orders. Whether you choose to be a low-ranking Roman band of soldiers in the Legion, or a low-ranking member of a Celtic tribe, you're just summoned. Very mysterious start indeed, not much is known and not much is told. Now, to add a bit more information to the time period that this game takes place in, for those that don't know, Boudicca, and I'm probably saying that wrong, she was the Celtic queen of the Iceni tribe, and they were in modern-day Anglia, Britain, and she led a revolt against Rome in 60/61 AD. So that is the time period that this game takes place in. Just a little bit more information about that. When you play a game from SpiderWeb Software, you'll notice that visuals are not their strong point. But while this game is not visually pleasing, the descriptive writing paints a picture in your head. It does have a visual aspect to it. Not with how you see it, but how the writing puts an image in your head. It's just like reading a good book. The wording is so descriptive, it's so detailed that while you may not be able to see it in front of your eyes, you can see it in your head. That's how it is. And just like the last game I reviewed on this channel, Geneforge, this is no different. The visualization is about words. The visuals don't do it justice, but the words do. And I start off with this because that's what makes SpiderWeb Software games work. My main playthrough was with the Celts. I played as the Romans too, but I like the Celts better. What can I say? I love me a good rebel story, a good underdog. I like fighting the power. This is one of those games where the setting is truly unique. How many games do we get to play as a Celtic tribe, trying to hold off the Roman invasion during the times of Nero, especially in an RPG? Not that many. The story, while really linear, kept me interested, not only because of the background of Celts trying to save their homeland from Roman control, but how it mixes history with fantasy in this historical setting. And I'm speaking from the Celt side since I think it's more interesting. This is how the world is. Not only do you have Roman soldiers roaming around, huddled in huge forts, sometimes occupying cities, but you also see fairy camps and towns with their traditions and history mixed in, druids, ancient rituals, and more. Nethergate Resurrection is very linear compared to a lot of RPGs. You won't find many side quests. It's a confined experience. You focus on a main quest and keep it moving. The story, while linear, is enjoyable. I liked it a lot, and the way SpiderWeb Software games are written and the settings they choose certainly add to my enjoyment. Whether it's a fort, a small town, a small camp, I read every part of the descriptions that pop up when you enter a new area. The huge texts that pop up when I enter certain rooms, roam around the world, and see a monument lying around to find out what it is. Or when I'm in some town and I see this huge fucking statue and I find out who it is and what the history was behind them. These things really kept me captivated, engaged, and engrossed to find out the fate of the Celts, the Romans, and everything in between. Now, just like I did in my review of Geneforge, the last SpiderWeb Software game I reviewed on this channel about 2 years ago, I'm going to read the description of one of the areas, and what I want you to do is try to visualize this in your head, listen to the words, maybe close your eyes, and see if these words can paint a picture in your head. I think they will. And I quote, "Suddenly, reality takes a brief holiday. Air and matter warp and twist around you. Cliffs melt away, and dry rocky plains become green and rich in an instant. One step, you are on a deserted stretch of land. The next, you are in front of a castle. You stumble back, seized by a fierce attack of vertigo from staring up at those towering walls. When you back away, the castle disappears. When you walk forward, it reappears. This must be how it stays hidden. Amazing! Where before an impossible cliff tower ahead of you, now there's a castle wall, a gleaming, smooth expanse of gray streaked marble. A sign inside the front gate proudly proclaims where you are, in front of the fabled castle. The castle is enormous. It stretches for hundreds of feet to the north and south. It looks like it has two wings. The north wing is broad and low, and even shinier than this section. From the inside, you can hear the snatches of a song. The south wing, on the other hand, is more of a tower. The shape is lumpy and awkward, and the stone is dull and lusterless. There are no signs of life coming from its dark windows. To the west, a gate beckons. To the north and south are gardens, rich, well-tended, and fragrant." And I end that quote. Pretty descriptive, right? Me personally, I think that's really good writing, and it definitely paints a picture in my head. Now, while I do like the story in the game, I enjoyed it from beginning to end and I wasn't bored. I do have a gripe with it. I do wish the areas were more fleshed out. I do wish there was more things to see and do. While there is a lot of text explaining everything, and during the main story, you will run into different characters that tell you their backgrounds. You can roam around different areas, even outside the main story, and go into maybe optional towns or little areas and find little villages and stuff like that. While they do have that, I wish they were more fleshed out. For example, more side quests, but not just any side quests, really in-depth ones. For example, maybe you can do side quests and find out the struggles of the people that are inside this one city that's occupied by Roman soldiers. It's obvious they don't want them there. Maybe a side quest where you can assassinate the Roman soldiers guarding them so you can get it under Celtic rule, or maybe a small band of tribes, whatever. Or on the flip side, maybe the Romans can try to bribe you to assassinate whoever's rebelling against them in that town to keep everyone quiet, docile, and submissive. Things like that. With that being said, I'm glad SpiderWeb Software decided to just make this a linear experience rather than try to prop the game's length up by adding in shallow, bare-bones quests like fetch this and kill X amount with no background. I don't mind those quests, but a lot of games put a fuckload of them in there as side quests to really prop up the length, to try to make it longer than what it really should be. Now, that's not to say that there isn't any content outside of the main story in Nethergate Resurrection. There are some side quests, very little of them though, and when you are traveling around the world, there are optional areas. Some of them are just go in there and kill the enemies, get XP, but others, they do give you more background of the game. There are secrets to see. You can go into different villages and loot them, burn them down, take their stuff, just have no mercy, or you can trade with them and find out their backgrounds a little bit more. There are little events that happen while you're roaming around. You can choose to get into fights to help other people or let them die, steal people's rings when you're traveling through the forest, pick up these certain objects facing the consequences, or maybe nothing will happen, or you enter an encampment and you can choose to fight or run away. There are these little things that flesh out the world. It's not just the main story, but I felt like there could have been more, and that's my biggest gripe with the story. And that's not to say that this game doesn't have no depth. There's a lot of depth within the main story and how the game is told, the writing and things like that. Overall, I think the game and the story would have benefited more from being a bit more non-linear, adding more meaningful side quests, and just fleshing it out a bit more. But with that being said, I enjoyed the story. I'm no good at managing a party, and it's been a while since I played a SpiderWeb Software game, and I did play this on the tough difficulty, so it was a struggle to get there sometimes. This game did kick my ass in certain areas, and I had to reload a save a lot of times because I fucking died. Yeah, I gripped onto my mouse extra tight because I was pissed, and I ain't breaking that shit because I'm poor as fuck. But throughout the struggles, the trials and tribulations, the frustration, and probably the fucking high blood pressure that came from dying in this one fucking area that I almost didn't get out of, I really enjoyed the story. Nethergate Resurrection is a turn-based party RPG. Combat takes place on a grid, and if you're familiar with any other SpiderWeb Software game, this is more or less what you would expect. There are a nice amount of druid spells, from creating copies of enemies to making you more resistant to damaging ground like lava or poison, or creating food. And the more you learn through a combination of buying and discovering, you find out that there is a nice balance between discovering spells and using the gold you earned to buy them. And there are things outside your regular skills, like some side stuff. For example, rune reading, which lets you interpret certain text, and special abilities like woodcraft, and one of your characters has these, so this means you can sense enemies when you're traveling throughout the world, and you can avoid confrontations. So there's a good amount of variety within the different circles of magic to experiment with. The combat itself is not as interesting as Geneforge. In Geneforge, you create creatures, modify their skills that affect their behavior, and watch your army go to work. But while it's not as interesting as Geneforge, there is fun to be had with the gameplay, and to me, this is due to two reasons: difficulty and area design. Looking at the graphics of Nethergate Resurrection, it's easy to think that this game is just really simple, but that's not the case. Looking at the layouts of the castles, dungeons, camps, and more, it does seem simple at first. But as you traverse through the areas, you'll find out that they are stacked with secret doors, alternate areas to discover, and it's not always as simple as just seeing it. Sometimes you have to hug the walls until you slip into a secret area, get your strength up to break one of the doors, or picklock it, which isn't automatically given to you, especially when you're trying to break a door. These layouts are long and can be brutal and unforgiving. Nethergate Resurrection has no problems telling you that you fucked up and punishing you for it. For example, I was in this one area trying to kill a queen. I rushed into this. I didn't train much before I went in there. I got to the top floor and thought I was fine because this is where the person was. But there was a catch. Once you enter this floor, you can't turn back. And this wasn't even near the end of the game, so it's not like it's the final battle. This was just one of the missions. So if I'm about to die, I just can't run back outside the place, camp, heal up, and come back in. It was do or die. Now the problem is that I had to sneak around, which is not bad in itself, but one hand, I couldn't take on the fuckload of enemies that was there. So I finally found the secret room to make it to the door, only to find out I don't have any lockpicks and none of my characters are strong enough to break through this fucking door. So it was either break through that door or face dozens of enemies head on, and I couldn't do neither. I tried to, and I failed about 10 times, and I almost crushed my mouse in half. This game gave me that strength. I didn't have the spell to get me out of this area. I was fucked. Couldn't escape. You can't leave till the queen's dead, and that was it. So I had to reload an old save from about 2 hours back. It was my fault for rushing into this area without the necessary tools, and this is what keeps the gameplay fun, discovering the alternative routes and secrets within these areas. Some of them are very long, spanning multiple floors, traps, holes that you can fall into, alternative areas, and a lot of secrets. Oh, just a heads up about that one mission about killing the queen. I finally did crack through the door when I came back there, but guess what? I got through the door, but I wasn't nearly strong enough to kill the queen, so yeah. Fuck my life. Hard. Anyways, every SpiderWeb Software game I beat or at least played a bit of, which is not their whole catalog but more than what I've reviewed on this channel so far, I've always liked the layouts of the areas. Overall, I've always enjoyed what twists and turns, how they were designed. Yeah, every RPG has areas that you fight enemies, discover secrets, things like that. It's how they're designed and how well that I think they are, and especially with Nethergate Resurrection and some of the SpiderWeb Software games, I think they do a really good job in that area. I always felt like there was more to discover, even if I felt like I searched long and hard. One encampment, I remember, I went to a lower level that was completely optional because I already did the main quest, what I had to do for that area. So I traverse deep into this encampment, walk into Run Room, and fight this mythic creature. Barely got through that fight, so I'm going down. I turn to walls, run into a fuckload of spiders, poisonous rats, casting heal, trying to fucking shield my main fighters because they're taking most hits. So I finally get down to the deepest part of this dungeon, surrounded by a bunch of lava. I go to this one area, there's this like, I guess you can call it like a lesser fire demon. I killed it pretty easily, and I thought, well, I killed the boss or whatever the fuck this encampment was called because I have a bad memory, and it's short, and I had that voice crack. Oh fucking well, I'm keeping it in there. So I thought everything was cool, but guess what? I slipped down, and there's treasure in this one room, so I'm like, well, this is a long fucking area, but I'm already down here. As soon as I enter this fight, 3 turns, I'm fucking dead. And guess what happened? I forgot to save, so I had to do all that shit again. I always felt that this game did give a good enough challenge. There were some parts where I felt like I was going to be stuck because I was just getting fucked up. Seriously, some of these areas can be tough, but to be fair, and this is coming from my personal experience, I'm not as good as managing a party as I am as playing as one single character, and I am a bit rusty at playing this type of game, especially SpiderWeb Software's interpretation of this formula, because the last SpiderWeb Software game I reviewed was Geneforge. So that's a little side note, but there were some moments that just really gave me an adrenaline rush. I remember I was stuck inside this one castle wondering what to do because I wanted to leave and camp so I could heal up, so I could venture further into whatever this fucking castle had to offer. But guess what? Right outside this area, 8 dark spiders, maliciously, methodically, stalking me, observing me. I had nowhere to go, so I thought that I could just run outside, go back into this area real quick, and they would reset. They don't reset. They were just sitting. No matter how long I waited, I would have to face them at one point. So I try to fight them. 8 dark spiders crowding around 4 fucking peasants because my characters weren't strong enough to take them on, so I was prey to them. I was the bottom of the food chain. One of the dark spiders stood back while the others just guarded him because he was doing a lot of the damage. I fucking died. So as soon as I step outside, I got jumped, basically, in layman's terms. And me being from the ghetto, I know that all too well. So, in a weird way, I can resonate with that, but I'm not in a half historical, half fantasy version of 60 AD, so it's the little differences, right? Anyways, I didn't skate with my life, so there's so many times in this game where I thought I knew what I was doing, and just to find out that the game is longer than what I expected, and this game ain't gonna be a breeze like I thought it would. And I, for one, enjoy that. In a lot of cases, I had to preemptively plan my combat strategy. There's a combat button where you can preemptively get the upper hand on your opponents if they don't see you. So let's say you're walking down an area, whatever hallway, and you see the enemy but they don't see you. You can press the combat button and get into whatever formation before they see you. One misstep can be the difference between life or death, and I can think of one particular example. I was going down this dark cave rushing, and as soon as I turn, I enter this small room. My main fighter, the guy that does most of the melee damage and takes most of the hits, got fucked over really bad. As soon as he takes this turn, he gets caught in a spider's web, incapable of moving for 5 turns, and even after that he's slowed down and he just got mobbed on by spiders. But the next time I go down the area and try it again, I see the outline of this room. So I press the combat button and I strategically maneuver my healer, my pure mage that does most of the damage in a magical sense, and the fighter outside the room. So I wait for the spiders to go out and draw themselves out to me because they see me and they want to attack. So the outcome of the fight was a lot better. Still took a bit of damage, but I won. So that can help you a lot. And there is a strategy and more of what meets the eye than what you see graphically. It may seem simple at first, but it's not. I can promise you that. But there is a drawback to being able to do this. Sometimes the AI glitches out. Sometimes I would preemptively start combat, pressing that button, and I would be able to shoot magic at the people that I'm trying to kill and they would not attack back. My characters were right in their view and I was attacking them, I was hostile, but they just glitched out. So the game does have some AI problems, but overall I felt like the game was hard enough without feeling like it's unfair. There's a good balance and the AI's good. Just don't rush it and try to do all the optional things like grinding a little bit and doing whatever side quests or areas with enough monsters that you can get some decent training and that they are, even though there's not a lot of them, do what you can, because the difficulty spikes in this game, sometimes they really did fuck me in the ass, but to be fair, I kind of rushed through some of them and I'm kind of rusty at these type of games, so everyone's experience can be different. Now, another thing that SpiderWeb Software is known for is, besides the bare-bone graphics, is the lack of sound and music, and Nethergate Resurrection sadly isn't any different. There are barely any sounds, and I think there's only one song that plays at the title screen and at the end, and this can be a setback to a lot of people. Me personally, I got used to it, but I can see why some people would be a bit discouraged by it. But overall, Nethergate Resurrection is an RPG worth playing. The writing, area layouts, and setting are what I enjoyed the most about it. I would have loved to see more areas fleshed out, more side quests, and some minor fixes with the AI, but I enjoyed the game and I recommend it. Thank you for watching. If you want to leave a comment, you know how to get into contact with me. Leave a comment if you want to. Have a nice day.